What is up, people? How's it going? Hopefully, everybody's having a great day. Let me get a few things checked up and we can get started. So, the whole plan for this session is to pretty much have a discussion with you guys as to how you can get started with programming. And when I say get started with programming, I'm not talking about any specific language. I'm going to be giving you guys a roadmap into how you can start into understanding programming and also get little bit of an understanding of how usually I go about learning any new programming language. Um, so the whole idea behind learning programming languages is similar to how you learn to speak a language, right? So I know a couple of languages and I can speak it fluently. And what happens when you don't practice it, right? That's the whole idea behind this session. So I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit of understanding of what languages are and how you can get started with it. And I'll obviously be taking a lot of questions from you guys. So don't forget to just put your questions down on the chat and I'll be able to answer them on the floor. So I'll just take another minute time, just get started. I just want to make sure that everything is fine. If my audio is not fine or if you are not able to hear it, just let me know now so I can get it fixed and we can get moving on. All right. Hmm. I haven't really prepared any slide per se, but like I said, I'm going to be giving you guys information on how to get started with programming. So let's get moving on. All right, so the idea is to pretty much you guys will be seeing a lot more of this. So what is in this session? The main idea behind in the session is to get a roadmap of where to start and how to start with programming, and move on to having a language agnostic trip. So when I say language agnostic, I'm not talking about a specific language, right? Even though in the description I've put like I'm talking about Python, for example, I'm going to be showing you guys few examples of Python and how I started learning with it. And when I say language agnostic, you can apply these tips and tricks to any of those languages. If you want to learn C++, you want to learn Java, you can learn any of that um, using these tips and tricks. So finally, we're also going to be discussing the basics of programming. What exactly does basics of programming constitute, right? When a lot of people say just understand the basics of a programming language, what exactly is this basics, right? That's what is going to be the first question in your mind. So we're going to be seeing what exactly are these basics, and what exactly is what does it probably encompass. So that's what you're going to be seeing in this session, and I'll be using Python as a programming language example. So it's not like you cannot apply to any other programming language. You can apply this to any programming languages, but I'll be showing you guys a lot of examples with Python. So that's what we're going to be seeing. Hmm, let me check quickly. Yeah, everything seems fine. I'll also have my IDE started, so it doesn't take so much time to start the IDE, right? By charm. Okay, I might be writing some code, so I just want the ID here. All right. All right, let's get moving on. Hopefully, I just wanted to give another minute's time for people to join in, but if they're not going to join, no problem, we can get started. So what exactly do you start? Where exactly do you start with, right? And most of these courses that you see online, right? If you see, for example, a programming language basics on Python, you want to learn Python, and there's usually these 9-hour videos and probably 8-hour videos that has a lot of information in it. So my first step when I start learning any programming language is to understand what exactly does the programming language do. So for example, if I take Python, I want to have a goal oriented approach. So when I say goal oriented approach, I'm talking about what exactly is going to be the end point of this. So always have a goal oriented approach. That's going to be your first point. If you don't have a goal as to what you want to learn a programming language with, and what where you want to apply it to, you'll never have an end point, right? You need to start somewhere and end somewhere. If you don't have that goal, you will never be in a point to learn. That's the whole point of exams. Since you know that there's going to be an exam, you study for the exam. Similarly, if you know that your goal is to, probably, let's say, a simple goal, the first goal that you need to have is, I want to build a simple framework, or I want to build something as simple as converting an image file into, let's say, I have bunch of images, I want to create some kind of a slideshow. And this is like a goal where you know that it's possible, because you see a lot of these image applications that take bunch of images, and you can create it into a slideshow. So this is going to be your end goal, and you have zero understanding of what programming is. You have zero understanding of what anything does. So you get started with the image, and you want to finish it to a slideshow. This is going to be your understanding. So you need to understand what an image is, how an image gets created, and all of those sort. Probably this is a very complex thing to start with, so let me give you a simpler example here. So let's say your goal is to probably build a simple calculator application. That's what I usually tell people when they want to get started. So build a calculator application where you start, you have numbers from 0 to 10, 9, and you probably have bunch of other operations like plus, minus, multiplication, division. And your goal is, when you input a couple of numbers, or you should input any number, you just click on this button, do what you want, and it should give you the answer. So that's the whole app you want to build, right? You want to build an app like this. And in order to do this, you need to understand, you got to have a goal. So this is going to be a goal. This is what you want to finish at. And you got zero understanding of what programming is. You don't know what programming is. You don't know what data structures are, anything of that sort. So if you know this is the goal that you want to build, then you go for the second step, where you understand what programming language you want. Let's say I'm picking Python up, and I have a Python programming language, and you want to see what are the different things that are possible with Python. Can this language solve my problem, which is the goal? Can I achieve this goal with my programming language? This is oftentimes the problem. This is oftentimes where people get confused as to, what should I start with? Should I start with mobile application development? Should I start with web application development? What exactly should I start, right? That's often the confusion. So if your goal is to build an app, you can either build it on mobile, or you can build it on web. So decide where you want to do that. And as soon as you start understanding that this is going to be my goal, this is what I want to see, and this is my final output, then you pick your programming language. Not before that, only after deciding your goal. So always have the first goal, define your goal. This could be for any programming language. If you are building this for, if you are, say, let's say you're very experienced with the programming, and you want to pick a programming language, and how do people decide, like, this programming language suits mine? And that's how bigger companies also decide. The first decision is to see what the goal is, what the endpoint is. And I want to build a REST API, or I want to build a service, I want to build a Zomato, I want to build bigger like Unacademy, things like that. I want to build a huge application, and I'm going to see the application. I'm going to decide based on the merits of the language. So only after you decide the goal, you then pick up a language. So for this problem, you can either use Python, you can use basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript. To do this, probably you will choose this stack only. Since Python can run for your mobile, you can use Python. You can either use a web technology like this, or then you can use probably a few other things, like if you really want mobile, you can use either C# or Swift. All of these languages are available. So all of these languages are going to be always there. These are tried and tested languages. So these are tried and tested programming languages, and you will obviously be having this almost on every it's going to continue to be there for a longer period of time. So you have your goal, you have chosen your language, you are going to be choosing based on the merit. Let's say there is a pretty new programming language, like nobody knows about it. It got released only last month, and everybody's like going crazy about it. Everybody's saying this is the best programming language ever, it's very simple and all of that sort. If you really jump into that straight away without understanding what your goal is, you will probably be like messing around. You will understand the basics of it, and then you will lose interest, and you will not be learning any programming language at all. So don't go by any peer pressure, don't go by any kind of understand. Without an understanding, don't jump into a programming language directly. So once you have the basic understanding of what this is, and after that you choose your programming language, and I say I'm going to be building this in a mobile application using Python. The third step is to understand how to do this, right? You want to do this, but how to do this? And I would often recommend a text based course, um, or a smaller video course. I'm not a big fan of huge videos that run for 9 and 10 hours, and probably you will get lost just because of seeing that it's a 10-hour course and I'm not going to do anything. So I would often recommend a smaller video course where you have probably 20 different videos, 30 different videos, and all of them are put in a good playlist, and you can just follow through that. So if you want to learn Python, let's say that you want to learn Python, I would recommend Tech with Tim. You can learn a lot of things from this channel. You can also pick up, probably if you want to really learn this one, which is HTML, and JavaScript, you can go with probably Hitesh Chaudhary. Lot of YouTubers are still out there, which nothing is coming to my mind at this point of time. So you follow a playlist that is having smaller videos but categorized in a proper way. So you have a decent playlist, and it is having bunch of different things. It is having a properly arranged, so it starts from point A with zero understanding and takes you to the last point where you have a good understanding of the basics of programming. And if that is what you're interested in, I'm not a big text based learner, you can go for video. One advantage with text based courses are that you have the code right there. Now if you say a video based course, you see people typing it on the computer, you see people doing it on the computer, but you don't have the access to the code that they are writing. Some usually you will be seeing it in a different repository where you have to go to the link and find it. It's kind of like you got to do back and forth stuff. So if you have a text based course, you can now probably have a very detailed understanding of it. And also always go for free courses, which will make you not shell so much bugs for learning the basics. So if you want a text based course, you can choose Unacademy, probably one of the most useful resourced thing. You can, for even text based course, I would even recommend Unacademy, because you can find that it's a one-to-one kind of a relationship that you can have with the learner, and you can ask questions and things like that. So either Khan Academy or Unacademy, or you can choose any of those these platforms for text based / video based. I shouldn't say text only, which is also video. So kind of like an interacting kind of a course. And once you've done this, you understand the basics of programming, right? You start from, say, what is a variable. This is where you're starting, and you're just taking it to the end point where you understood now creating a text reader. So let's say that you're just understanding few important things with it, like starting with a variable, and you're probably finishing that entire module by understanding how to write a huge program, and everything has information categorized in that. So you've completed all this. Where do you go from here? So that's what the next step is for. Just go to the next step where you will learn to understand by targeting your goal. Your goal is going to be this, right? You want to build an app that is going to do this. So in the next step, you should always be building it along with understanding where you want to go, and learning to do that by watching videos, do something. No, you got to have the final end goal in your mind all the time. So my point is that, yeah, it's the fourth point where you now have an application based learning. This is something that a lot of people don't practice that much, because you are going to be learning something that's a very detailed way of doing it. From what is a variable, you understood what is a variable, so you're going to be understanding how I can apply this to my goal. My goal is to build a calculator application, so how can I apply this to my goal? That is what is very important here. So you start from what is a variable. So you think, if I understand what a variable is, can I build my calculator application? Yes, definitely. You get started with it. So you apply the concept of variables to it. So you assign bunch of variables, and then you put information inside it, and that's how you get started. And that's how it should be. It should be like a repetitive process. You should keep on learning and applying, the application shouldn't just be about basic assignments, right? Basic things. It should be targeted towards your goal, and the goal is to always build your final application. When this is example is an app application, like a calculator application. And once you have this application based learning, you will find that your time is drastically getting reduced. So you're not spending 14, probably, let's say that for this whole thing, you have in your mind, you have told yourself that I want to learn to code in 3 months. And if the time frame is set, that's my fifth point. You need to have a time frame set. So when you have the time frame set, you do know that I want to reach this goal in 3 months, but I don't have, let's say you have spent 15 days understanding what is a variable. It's okay. You have understood a variable, you've applied it to the application that you want to build, and you have a very simple application. And as you go, the time will automatically get reduced. So if you have this, if you're following this application based learning, you will see that your time is getting drastically reduced. You're not no longer spending 15 days in one concept. You are now spending just probably a day or probably 2 hours a day. That's the maximum you're spending. So your time goal is going to be your final, let's say it's going to be your final exam. You're going to be writing your final exam in 3 months. So you're starting to learn from today, and that's how you are going to be learning this entire thing. This is my simplest roadmap, I should say, to understanding or having a very decent understanding of any programming language. You can apply this to any programming language, and all of this goal is towards something that you already set. You have a set goal and you're trying to reach that. And as you keep on iterating on the fourth point, which is to learn and apply, you will see that your time is getting drastically reduced. You are now no longer, and you no longer need months and months to learn programming language. You will probably be looking at a language, you see that the documents are there, and you know how to apply it to your goal. So that's how I learned Python when I started, because I wanted to jump into I was actually I learned Java very much in my college. Java and C++ were my only languages that I learned. And suddenly for my work I had to start learning Python, right? My whole team was building things on Python, so I had to learn Python, and this is the technique that I applied. So I knew that in my goal I needed to understand a framework that my team was building. So in order to understand that framework, I need to have an understanding of the language that it is built on. So that's how I got started. I knew my goal, I learned the language by applying, continuously applying, and finally I could learn the entire programming language in less than 2 months time. And this was probably the it shouldn't have taken 2 months time, but still I learned it under 2 months time. And it's one of the most used technique when it comes to machine learning. You do machine learning, you always kind of like do an iterative approach there, and just apply all these algorithms in your real life as well, and you'll find it much more easier. So this is like a basic of how you get started with programming. I'm not like not yet delved into the insights on what you learn and how do you learn that, which I'll be explaining in probably in the minute. So this is going to be like the framework. You have the set framework, you're applying this framework to everything, and this template is going to be very, very useful for you on the long run. Quickly check here. All right, so this is the first one, and that I really wanted to talk about. So just jumping into the understanding of all this, right? Followed by that, I have another approach, which not an approach, but something which I really follow, which I really like to follow even now, is to decide what you want to do, right? And there's this another stream that I was doing on the other channel, and one person asked like, how do I prepare for a competitive exam in a coding round, a competitive coding round in one of my dream companies. And the idea is to have a clear approach, right? You now see a huge course, and this course has probably 300 hours of content in it, and you are not very sure, how do I learn that, how do I understand that? That's where this application comes into picture. So I call this, I really don't know the name of this, but I call this the four square approach, where the four square starts with probably you understand what you really want to do, and something that you can delegate later, something you don't really want to do now, probably in the future, and something you definitely don't want to do at all. So the first one is to do it now, this one is to delegate, this is do it later, and this is do and do. So this is the four square approach that I follow for everything. This is also a prioritization technique, where you understand what your priorities are, and you understand that your goal, you want to put everything within these four squares, so you have your priorities set. And the first thing is where you need to understand. So I'm going to be explaining what these four squares should do right at this point of time. I'm also going to be using Python as a programming language. So in the case of a Python, with Python, if you want to be starting and you find a course that has 300 hours of content in it, you don't get overwhelmed. First you do is you prioritize your content. You understand what I need now, and you understand what I don't need necessarily now, but I'll do it probably after 20 days or 30 days. And the do it later part will be for probably after 3 months, probably after finishing the entire course on Python. And finally, don't do is I don't even need it now at all, so I'm not going to worry about it. So in the case of Python, let's say that for the do it now box, you definitely need to know the basics, right? The basics as in what a variable is, understand all the concepts when it comes to oops, and you also understand the syntax clearly, and also you try to do some basic information like build something using the terminal. So this is going to be the basics, and this is also going to be the do it now box. So you definitely need to do it right now. So you have a course, and the course first starts with what is a variable, and it takes you to basic things like what is the data structure and what all of those are, and you try to put it in the do oops box. Finally, the syntax as to how well you can manage the syntax. What are the different differences between a class? What is the difference between a function? What is the difference between a variable and a function? All of these syntaxes you're going to practice. Finally, you are going to be building something very simple with a terminal. That's where your do it now box ends. Now this is going to be definitely, you definitely need to do this. So that's where you need to first prioritize. So the next box is to delegate, which is to probably also say call it do it not immediately but do it sometime later. So the delegate box is probably going to be things that fall under the pictures of um, for Python I can say some concepts with Python like enums. Then you have Python coroutines, and understanding Python versioning, what version has what, and all those things. You don't necessarily need it immediately to understand or have a basic understanding. This what constitutes the basic as well. So what exactly constitutes the basics? So these are things. And delegate parts will be things that you don't necessarily need it now, but you can do it probably some other time. Uh, and but you definitely need to do it to complete your understanding. The third box is do it later. So do it later as in completely after understanding the basics of Python, or probably learn after learning the programming language. The do it later box will probably hold frameworks itself, or frameworks, or probably you can call it as, yeah, frameworks pretty much, right? So let's say you want to learn Django for the website server development. You will not jump into learning Django immediately. First you need to finish your basic boxes, this and this, and only then you will jump into your do it later box, which is Django. Or let's say you want to learn fast API, or I actually do a lot of videos in my channel on Kiwi, which is a Kiwi is actually a GUI based framework for mobile app development. So all of these things will come and do it later. Only after you finish your course, or only after you finish your Python understanding, you will jump into this box, right? And that's the main part. And don't do it part is actually very tricky to put into. You don't necessarily need it ever is not the answer, is not the point of this. Don't do it now is what it actually means. So when I say don't do it now, you will probably be thinking about learning multiple frameworks at the same time, which is something that you should definitely not do when you're building or trying to learn the basics of a language. So multiple framework learning is something that you shouldn't do, or learning Python and C++ at the same time, nothing like that you should be doing. You can definitely learn it probably after 6 to 9 months, probably 1 year later, after you completely understood what a programming language is, after you completely understood how to build things with a framework, for example, like say Django, Fast API, or Kiwi. You understood, have good understanding of this, and then you can probably jump into learning multiple frameworks at the same time, probably doing all of those things. And this is going to be my priority box. Like I said, it's called my 4D box, or four squared box, whatever you want to call it. And this is actually a very famous technique that improves your priorities, and you can apply it to any programming language. I'm just giving it a basics here. Like I said, I'm using Python as example, but you can apply it to any programming language. And this is also one more important point which I wanted to cover. All right, I'm guessing that is pretty much what I really wanted to convey at this point of time. So I'm just going to be waiting for another minute or two to see if you guys have any questions. You can ask me that, and we can have this in a detailed fashion. So we will see how this really goes. So yeah, I've already wrote questions. You can ask me questions, and I'll answer them if you have any. And this is also the whole point of this video, right? You understand it and you're asking questions, and we have a good discussion about it. All right. I've actually covered everything that I wanted to talk in this session. I was expecting that few people would join and ask me questions, but since that's not happening, I'm guessing that was going to be my end. So if you guys have any questions, just ask me now so we can have a good discussion about it. But like I showed you guys here, I covered my understanding. Like I covered all the tips that I used to learn any programming language. So you guys that's going to be my end. You can watch this video anytime you want, and this is actually a good framework that you can apply to any language. So it's going to be very interesting to see the results out of it. And this is a tried and tested framework. This is something that has been useful for me for more than 6 years now. I've learned different languages at different period of time depending on my goal, and that's the only thing that I really care about at this point of time. If you don't have this final goal set, and you will never be able to do anything without it, right? So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, it's the times to ask now, or else I'm going to be bidding bye from you guys. For tomorrow's session, I'm actually planning on doing an one-to-one meeting of sorts on Zoom, so it's going to be interesting one to see how many people join that. I'll see you guys tomorrow as usual, and have a great day. Thanks for joining, and thanks for probably finding this video. If you find this video useful, you know what to do, right? Just hit the like and subscribe to this channel. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, it's Bharat. Have a super awesome day, guys. Cheers.